We speak for the trees have no tongues.
I am Nick.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Adela.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah.
I would for instance, when I go to class, I don't really care if I sit by other people or not.
Yeah.
And there's girls in my class where they when
Have to
they
sit next
first
to a
week of
friend.
class that they always have to make sure that they have a table with all of their friends at it.
Mm.
And they're always talking in the hall. The girls are always linked up. At least around campus, that's what it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like cliques or something like that.
I wouldn't say so much cliques. I just feel like if they're gonna I guess I don't know how to explain it, but
Yeah.
I guess girls like to form groups more, and I don't really care about that.
Yeah. I mean, in my classes now, I don't choose, the 302 class with Nick. I sat next to Nick, but, I sat next to him and also away from him, so that I can choose to be in that, community, or I can choose just be myself.
Yeah, because you're the only one that sits in that front row, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why
I
I
would
like
say
that
that's what I
space.
do too.
And I sat down originally to sit next to that cursing girl.
Yeah. She's interesting, too.
Yeah, she's a cool chick, man. I'm friends with her on my Switch now.
On the Switch.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. But so basically, you have the other people that are helping you perceive reality, or you like to have yourself perceive the reality so that you can choose the way you see it, you know? But, sometimes, when I call someone and ask for help, that is me trying to perceive it in a way other than my instinctual way to perceive it. You know, I am asking for help to perceive reality
Right, to
in
get
a
a
new
different
way.
to get a different perspective on whatever you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you can, I guess, have someone else mold your reality remotely in a way. But, if you were truly, if you were in this house for, let's say, a week, and no one else even entered the house.
Right.
Not even the cats were outside.
Right.
You would have been the only living thing to perceive what this house
Right,
looks
this
like.
immediate
Kind of like the
area.
Schrodinger's theory.
Right,
Cat in the
right.
box. And so you, during that whole week time, were the only one that knew the states of the things in this house.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I'm almost determining the states themselves based on the fact that I'm the one
Yeah.
perceiving them.
Because you may have the motivation to go to the kitchen and move the tea kettle around to do its purpose. You
Right.
know?
And it wouldn't have been used had I not been there, or had someone else been there and maybe used it a different way.
Yeah.
That's also kind of like how a lot of scientists are kind of starting to think that, obviously this is maybe not explained the best way that it could be,
Yeah,
but they kind of have an idea that the world could be in such a way that each individual, or groups of individuals, depending, they are actually physically constructing the reality around them whenever they're looking at it. So, for instance, if you're walking,
during quantum theory.
right, if
Quantum
you're
mechanics.
walking alone in the woods, right, and it's a big forest, and you are walking in a straight path, and then you turn off of that path, right?
Yeah.
You're now perceiving things that aren't in direct line of sight of any of the places that you previously were,
yeah.
save for where you entered onto that
Yeah.
ranch, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of essentially saying that anything that you're not directly perceiving or in line of sight to where you can perceive it at an immediate kind of thing, it gets almost physically deconstructed into latent code that is then reconstructed when you interact
Yeah.
with it again. So you could be walking through a forest, you walk off the path, you start going a different way. That whole area that you're in now is actually physically around you because you're interacting with it, but the area that you were before, even though once you turn around and look at it and see that it's still there, when you turn around again, it could not actually
Something
be
had
there
been
when you
there.
turn around.
Yeah. I know, that's interesting. But the only exception for that, I would say, is the fact that trees can perceive themselves. But now, if we were on a barren planet, and it was just a bunch of rocks, but can matter perceive itself is the question. And
Yeah.
I think, like, I would like to think that matter can perceive itself, in a way. Like, not in a conscious state of being like we have, but I believe that matter can perceive itself.
But then you also have to make the distinction that consciousness and self-awareness are not the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
I would say
They
that
aren't.
cats probably have consciousness, but I don't know whether or not they have self-awareness.
Yeah.
Although some cats will look in the mirror and it looks like they've recognized themselves to a
Like
certain
monkey
degree.
stuff, though, so.
Yeah, my
Right.
cat Harold is very self-aware.
Really?
She like it's honestly really scary like how self-aware she is.
We should breed her with other smart.
Oh my god. You hear that, Adela?
What?
Breed her with other smart cats as well.
She's neutered already.
Undo it.
Married to Nick's cat though.
Yeah, it's
Nick and
true.
I are in-laws.
Yeah, we're cat in-laws.
Nice.
Yeah, our cats are married. They never had sex though. They can't
It's like
consummate
Chub
their
Chub's a
marriages.
whore.
Yeah, Chub Chubs is a little. Oh my god, my mom that one day she was like, "That little slut."
No, she yelled that whore.
Oh yeah, that whore. Yeah, that was so awesome, man. My mom's so funny. I want her to be a guest on the podcast and tell her crazy ghost stories.
Oh yeah, that
What?
would get.
She
I
has
didn't
a
know your
lot of
mom had
first-
ghost stories.
Oh yeah, she's got a lot of first-hand account experiences of relatives visiting her. And so, for instance, when she went to visit my Aunt Dinah, who died a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
a couple well, maybe like 10 or 12 years ago, she was helping my Aunt Dinah pack up her house in Pennsylvania so she could move and retire in Florida. And three or four different nights when she was staying in Pennsylvania, my Aunt Dinah's husband, my mom's Uncle Frank, visited her in various ways
Yeah.
across that 4-day period.
I would love to. I don't know if I talked to you about it, but I've seen spirits before.
Really?
And I'd love to talk to your mom about it.
Dude, yeah, man. I think she'd be a hoot to have on. She's funny as fuck.
Oh, man. So, like, when I was talking about the voices in your head.
Oh, when you go to sleep,
Yeah. So this one time I'm fucking meditating. And,
I'm fucking meditating.
so, like, this literally, I didn't meditate for, like, 6 months after this because of this experience. But, so before that, I was doing something they shouldn't do. I was talking to a dead spirit. Like, reaching out for a dead spirit.
Really?
You know, like,
Yeah, you're never supposed to do
you're
that.
not supposed to do
Even
that.
if you believe in it or not. Like,
Yeah. So I did that, and I totally had another spirit attached to me. And so I gotten rid of the spirit by now. But basically, when I was meditating, like, so I'm in contemplation, just like thinking about my thoughts. And then I'm out of that, and I'm in complete no thinking, just focusing on the stillness, you know. And literally, so, oh man, I can feel it, like, deep with, like a hardening of your heart, you know,
Oh,
like, just
God.
like lead, oh man. So basically, like, I'm sitting there meditating, it's all quiet, and within my head, I hear, hello? And it's like this woman's light voice, and then I'm like, what the fuck, and then I'm like, okay, just let it go. And that, but it kind of felt like, it's like in the very back of your head, just like when you fall asleep and you kind of hear it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, maybe it was just that phenomenon. And, so then I continue meditating, and then this, like, the way that he described the scream was the same exact scream that I heard from her. You know, it's just loud, like, girl, female, just like, it's like this, like, witch comes right up into your face, and it's like trying to hurt you, you know,
Right,
like wants to
like,
kill you.
Like a
I want to kill you scream.
like a whale. Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I can't project it, but
Yeah.
it's within my own head.
Yeah.
And you know how the voice within your head is always the same volume? It was like louder than a rock concert. You know, it is like this scream that's echoing throughout my mind and like in my head, just like louder than anything I've ever heard before.
Wow.
And it's just like, I want to kill you scream. And it's like 2 a.m, and like, so then I open my eyes and I'm like freaking out, and like it's still going on in my head, and like it doesn't leave my head until I leave the room. And like, so like I sit up, I stand up, I'm walking, and it, like I'm looking, and like I can still hear her screaming. And then like I just get out of there.
Wow.
And then I like go outside and I just chain smoked for a whole like half hour.
Holy shit, dude. See, I've never. God, I don't know. I as far as I know, save for some experiences I had when I was like 10 years old that I don't really know anymore if that really happened or if
Yeah.
that was just my childhood like being craziness, because it is. But I do know that once in my life I had a very vivid premonition that came true later that day. I was
No, you finish your story.
okay. No,
I'll be good.
my cousin Hadley spent the night, and now I'm probably 8 or 9 years old here. My cousin Hadley spent the night, and the next morning the two of us were eating cereal at the breakfast table. And in my parents' house, it's set up so that the seat I always sat in was looking right out the back door. And in my parents' backyard, there's a little hill, and then it goes down to like a walking path, and on the other side of that, there's a big forest preserve that me and my friends would always play in when we were kids.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting there eating cereal, and all of a sudden, like a flash, I'm looking at the forest, and then I blink, and I look again, and the entire forest was on fire and burning down, like completely burnt and consuming everything.
And this is during waking hours.
Waking hours, yeah. And
Yeah.
then I blinked again, and it was gone. And I remember saying to my mom, I'm like, Mom, I just saw the whole forest burning down. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, literally, I just saw the whole forest burn down, and I was fine. She's like, well, okay, that's really weird. And then, yeah, right? And then, I think it was, we went to Sam's Club or Menards or something. My mom wanted to pick up flowers, like, geraniums or whatever
Yeah.
moms get. And, and I remember we came back, and we were like, all right, me and Hadley are going to go hang out in the forest. So, like, Hadley and I went down there, and we walked in the woods, and there was a group of 3 teenagers that had just lit a fire and were basically, like, got bored of it and were leaving. And the fire was still going. And then I was like, my heart skipped a beat
Yeah.
and my blood ran cold, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it like came full circle.
That's
Yeah.
scary.
I was like, oh, whoa, what the fuck? And then
Yeah.
I ran and like told my mom, and she actually called the fire department and the cops because it's fucked up to light a fire and just leave it there.
Yeah.
Was it like a super small fire, or was it like a little campfire?
It was like a campfire. Like they
Okay,
dug
so like that definitely could have like
I have-
Oh
spread
yeah,
easily.
they dug like not deep enough, but they dug like a shallow little pit, and they started a fire in there.
Why would you leave it? I mean,
I
if
don't
you
know,
had the
man.
shit to start a fire, you should have had the shit to put it out.
Yep.
I have 2 stories to follow this.
Okay.
One of them, if we're going to put this on the podcast, has to be taken out.
Okay.
But it's pretty shitty.
Okay. Because I'm recording this also, Adela.
Yeah.
Just 'cause
okay.
this is gold.
But this one day, I had a dream. This was probably 2 years ago. I had a
This
dream.
one has to be taken out.
No, this one's fine.
Okay.
So I had a dream that I went to Jewel and I got a scratch card and I won $100. So I wake up, my friend Glenn's there, and we usually jam first thing in the morning, and he like wakes me up, and so it's like 9. I'm like, okay, let's go to Jewel, and then we usually get like bread and some like shit or whatever. So and I'm like, okay, I'll get a lottery ticket, and I won $100 from the lottery, and like I sometimes buy lottery tickets, but it's like, damn, like, and it was like the same thing as my dream. I was like, that's crazy, dude. And so yeah.
So that I've had that as well. That's a different phenomenon. If it's waking life, I believe it's like a premonition.
Oh, no, that's a different power.
That's like deja vu. That's
Yeah.
like dreaming the future. That's
Yeah.
happened to me a couple times too, man, and it's usually comes true pretty damn similarly.
You want to tell that
I
story?
kind
or
of
do you
have
want me
a
to go
creepy dream story.
Go for it.
You go now.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I had Lyme disease, there was a point in time where apparently I found this out like maybe a year after I had Lyme disease, but like from being in the hospital, and my cousins were telling me that like if the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me within a certain amount of time, they thought that like I was gonna have to like I would pretty much like die because I would go into a coma because I had meningitis of the brain, but they
What?
couldn't
Yeah,
figure
but I
out
just can do that.
like
Oh man.
they couldn't figure out how to cure it, and it was because I had Lyme disease. Like the meningitis was caused from the Lyme disease, but because they couldn't figure that out at the time, and so they're like so yeah, like they told my mom that and everything, and so, but I didn't know that. And when I was in the hospital, when I got there, I like remember getting there and everything, and like getting into a hospital room, and then after that, I don't remember anything. But within the time that I was out, I guess, like I don't know if these were moments where I was actually awake or if it was like a
Yeah.
dream state because I was so morphined up. But I remember like I had a curtain in my room like that went around the bed and you could close it or open it up.
Yeah.
It was a single room, so like I had no one in there with me. But I remember seeing a girl like she didn't have any shoes on, and I remember her having like long wavy hair, and she was wearing like a white dress, and she would weave in and out through the curtains, and I would stare at her and I would watch her, but I would never see her face,
Oh my god.
and whenever she would like weave back around, I think like I remember getting like frightened, but like almost like a calm frightened, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like startled and
Like
uneasy,
more so
but
like
not
like I was
scared.
like I was nervous.
Right, not scared though.
You know,
Right.
that's why I don't know. Like I don't know if I was like if that was like the state in between of like maybe what it feels to die, if I was just like tripping my nuts off from all the morphine.
Yeah.
But
Well, it could be both,
Both.
man. They're connected to some
I
degree,
guess
I think.
when I guess when my friend, my best friend at the time, when she came to visit me, um, I guess I told her, and she told me this after I got out of the hospital, that when she was like by my bed, I grabbed her arm and I looked at her dead in the eye, and I was like, do you see her? And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, do you see that little girl like by the curtain? She's standing by the curtain. And like I scared the shit out of her. Obviously,
Oh
if,
my
Yeah.
if someone did that to me, I'd be scared as shit too.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, like Adela, like no one's there right now. No one's there. And then like I just like let go of her arm and like I went back to sleep.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Dude, that's wow.
But listen to this now.
Okay.
So, like, I never really told anyone about like the girl I saw besides my friend Katie,
Mhm.
and I never really thought about it again after that. And it was probably like a half a year later, I had a dream that I was at like at a restaurant or something, and I left my hat on like a counter, and I was walking down these stairs, and I hear like someone behind me when I'm walking down these steps, and they're like, "Oh, excuse me, you left your hat." And I turned around, and it was like the little girl from the hospital
Oh my
man.
in
god.
my fucking dream. And it was like, but I didn't see her face. She just like, all I saw was her hands. Like I was only like, from my perspective, I was only looking at like her hands handing me the hat, and I saw like her long hair and the
Yeah.
dress. And then I woke the fuck up.
Oh man.
Dude, what the fuck?
I think she's like your spirit guide. She might be your spirit guide. I mean, sounds like she was trying to protect you in the hospital. You know.
From dying.
Yeah,
or
I don't
something.
know, but
Yeah.
like,
Honestly, it sounds like she was trying to protect you, and like she was like reaching out to save you again in your dream. You know, like in a metaphorical way.
yeah.
She's waiting to take your place.
she's gonna wait for you to leave your body when you dream and then enter your body.
Yeah.
You guys,
What?
have you guys ever seen Insidious?
Yeah.
I actually really like those movies.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're some of the few good horror movies as of late.
Mhm.
Actually, I also really like 1408. That movie's really good
That
too.
was
Actually,
pretty good.
I'm a fan of John Cusack.
Yeah, I don't like
You're
that.
the second white person that's told me that in 2 years.
What, really?
Wait, what?
You're the second white person to tell him that in the past 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
You know what? John Cusack cannot be in a scary movie. Sorry.
Have you seen it?
Yeah,
Have you seen it with the good ending though? Because there's a theatrical ending which is fucking retarded.
I don't know. I saw it, whatever it was, on demand.
Okay, it probably was the good ending. Because in the
I
good
don't-
ending, like in the theatrical release, John Cusack's character dies, and then you see him as a ghost at his own funeral for like a second, and it's like, what? Like, what the fuck was the point of this whole movie then?
Mhm.
But in the real one, they save him in time from like the building being on fire, and then like it shows him and his ex-wife, and they've like kind of gotten back together. It shows him and his ex-wife talking while they're unpacking stuff, like in their house that they got together again, and one of the things that was in one of the boxes was the tape recorder that he had going the whole time, because you know he was a writer in the movie, so like he would always record what he was saying, and on the tape recorder, he at one point when he plays it, the voice of his daughter who is visiting him in the room is on the tape recorder, and it shows just this look between his his kind of wife and him, like they just make eye contact, and he just gives her this look like, "I told you, bitch," and then it cuts to credits.
What was the story you were going to tell before that?
Oh, well, I don't even remember that one, but I did want to say this though, that I haven't ever come in contact with a spirit that I've communicated with, but I have a couple times in the basement at my parents' place. I've heard some weird shit. One time I was down there by myself, and I heard from where my mom's office where all that artwork was stored, and I was on the computers when my computer was still over there. And I remember I had just closed out of a game, and I kind of had heard something that didn't quite sound like my computer for a little bit, but I wasn't really paying that much attention. And I noticed after I closed the game that I heard someone whistling in the basement, and it was like a tune. It wasn't just a whistle. It was like somebody was singing a little song.
Yeah.
And then when I actually started to sit there and listen to it, it stopped. And then I just remember my whole body just went cold, and I was like, no. And
I wish you didn't tell me that, because your
just-
basement creeps me out.
I just stood up. I just stood up, and I walked upstairs, and I shut my door to my room, and I went to bed.
Yeah.
And another time,
The Newman family basement. I like your basement a lot, but it gives me weird vibes sometimes.
you gotta think about how much history is in the land that we develop on.
Yeah,
You know,
that's very true.
people
but,
lived in the Americas for at least 20, 30,000 years. You know?
Yeah, imagine living in a state like Maine, not Maine, but like Boston or Vermont, those old ass states
Yeah.
where shit happened on them. Imagine how haunted that shit is.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Some people say that Salem, Massachusetts, is super fucking haunted.
Well, I bet.
Did you
Yeah,
hear
witch
that there's
trials.
some people that they've done some studies and they think that the Salem witch trials was actually caused by psychedelic mushrooms that are grow in the area and they're slightly toxic, and that a lot of the shit that they were accusing these witches of were things that would happen on a really bad trip from these mushrooms.
You know, I have heard that actually. And
I think it was National Geographic or some mycologist that did a report about it.
See, I'd heard this, but I'd heard that it was ergot, which is the mold that grows on wheat and barley. I heard it was
Oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that as well though, and it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, it's not. I mean, the Puritans didn't really need much of a reason to kill somebody. The Puritans were really the Puritans were what the Wahhabis are now. They're the most of radical and.
The Puritans were for butt fucking though.
The Puritans weren't for any fucking, which is why they delighted in killing so much, because they had so much repressed
Sexual energy.
shit.
We were
Yeah.
learning in my history class about sexuality and sex during the 1700s,
Yeah.
and the reason why Philadelphia would not prosecute known men that would be considered homosexual was because the Puritans a few years before a few hundred years before they were for butt fucking. They didn't care if you did it or not.
Okay, I would say consider your source. I'm not saying that your class is wrong, but I would like to see what you're talking about, because as far
Nick,
as
I tell
everything.
her this all the time when she comes home
Oh
from
my
class.
god.
Well, no, just because I've done a lot of research into this specifically, because the reason why across everything 776 and on, or 1781, whenever we actually became a republic, everything from then on was all the relationships that we had religiously between church and state, and also between the United States and indigenous communities, was because of a model that was set down by the Puritans, and this was the most sexually and ecstatically repressive model that pretty much could be imagined in any society. Basically, anything that gave you joy that was outside of the 3-hour-long sermons that they would have was considered evil, and you would be whipped for it. And, for instance, there's a story of a man named Thomas Morton who was, I guess you could kind of call him a bohemian. He arrived around the same time as a lot of the big Puritan migrations in the 1620s, and he set up a town in what is now Quincy, Massachusetts, called Marymount. And essentially what he did was, him and about 30 or 40 other people established a commune, basically, and they were trying to establish a new cult of Aphrodite in the Americas, basically. They were trying to start a cult of, not bohemian, what's the word? Hedonism, basically, like hedonic pleasure. It was all based on just enjoying being in your body. They had this thing called the maypole, which they danced around every night, and they actually befriended and traded with and, had sex with a lot of the Wampanoag, the Pequot, and the Narragansett tribes in the Connecticut and Massachusetts area. And at one point, I believe it was 1627 or 1628, the Puritans, led by John Endicott, who was like one of the biggest fucks, in history, pretty much, in my opinion, they systematically went through the process of rooting out, converting, or killing all of the non-Puritan there was a lot of different types of people that came to the Americas. A lot of them had very good relations for the first, obviously there's the 1617 plagues that wiped out a lot of tribes.
Yeah.
But after that, the next wave of migration, there was Familists, Anabaptists, the Quakers, the Aphrodite cult, Thomas Morton's people at Marymount. There was a lot of different groups of people that came over. It's just they were all killed, basically, by the Puritans and rooted out and either sent back to England or incarcerated or whipped or hanged, to the point that everyone followed the Puritan model by a certain point. And that Puritan model was, we are an armed band of Christ on a mission to establish a new Israel, and everything from without is a unified force against God's will. We are going to defend God's holy land against, these brutish subhumans and whatever other forces. So that's where the model of there's always a new West, there's always a new frontier that has to be defended. It comes from that idea that was the seed was planted so early on that's why we went to Vietnam. That's why we went to the Philippines. I mean, it's a continuing cycle. So that's why I would say, just with my knowledge of how fucking brutal they were with everything regarding joy in general, that it doesn't come directly from Jesus kissing Jesus' ass cheeks. I would be surprised if they supported butt fucking. Or any,
That's what's wrong, because
well, I guess it's sodomy.
Well, if you think about it,
is not enjoyable.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. They didn't even want anyone to have sex unless it was for the sole purpose of having a child. Once a woman became pregnant, it was taboo for them to still continue to having sex. People would have sex like once a year to get a woman pregnant. That's about it.
Oh, man.
They thought that sex was evil.
What about condoms are about to expire sex, Like, there's a lot of types of sex they can have.
I'm just telling you my knowledge of the Puritans, and
No,
I would
I'm
be
just kidding.
surprised if they were up with sodomy.
There's this episode of How I Met Your Mother where they're, like, trying to think of different reasons to have sex. It's a pretty good episode.
Oh, God.
There's an awesome horror movie that takes place in Puritan times that came out a couple years ago called The Witch.
Don't talk about The Witch. I thought it was terrible.
The Witch?
What?
I thought it was good.
I mean,
Black
okay.
Phillip?
Okay, listen. From a perspective of portraying a historical period, it did a fairly good job, but the movie itself was just dumb.
I thought it was good.
Well, he liked 1408, so I'm not going to take that.
Hey man, just try watching it again. Trust me. It's pretty good.
Trust me, Nick. Trust me.
Hey,
I want
man.
you to watch it again.
Hey man, you know what? It really wasn't enjoyable at all.
I'm done with this conversation.
Piece of shit.
I'll see you on Thanksgiving, boy, and I'm taking your Hawaiian rolls.
Don't you dare. Browns ain't allowed to have my rolls.
I'm just gonna leave you with that weird cranberry jelly stuff.
I love that cranberry jelly.
Cranberry jelly.
Cranberry jelly.
Excuse me, sir. Your license says 22 on it, but your personality says 89.
Dude, I'm telling you, I took a personality test. It said I was in my mid-60s.
You are.
I take personality tests too, and it tells me that
Just
as
had
well.
a picture of some dust.
Some dust. Some dust with a yarmulke on it.
Matzah next to it.
Some matzah. Dude, matzah is dust. I might as well just be a pile of matzah.
Ah.
I'm matzah. Well, alright. I think at this point,
Yeah, this is like the third time we said we were done.
yeah, I think I'm
Yeah.
actually going to say adieu just because I do have some shit that I have to work on today
Yeah.
before going to chill with my buddy Brad later. So,
So do I.
meh.
No, I'm not chilling with Brad later, but
You chilling with Brad?
I have a silence I also have to get back to.
You have to go all the way to Carpentersville.
No, I don't. I wish I could go back home.
I'm pumped to see
I
you guys
hate
over the break.
Wisconsin.
What did Eric say?
He said, "Don't speak like that." I hate Wisconsin.
Eric loves the Northwoods.
Eric, yeah, that was great, Nick.
I'm a fan.
I'm Eric, and I love the Northwoods.
Lifelong fan of the
Central
Northwoods.
Sand.
Show me some loons.
Of the Central Sand.
Central Sands is my Reddit name.
Show me some
No,
loons.
fucking- what the heck?
Add me on Reddit, B.
Oh my god. God damn it.
I
Goodbye.
fucking hate you.